Despite a loss to the Buccaneers last week, the Seahawks still very much in good shape in the NFC West. Could this be a crucial week for them to make up ground within the division? We're going to be examining where things stand in the NFC West and why Week 6 is a critical one for all four teams. Coming up next here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, whether you are tuning in from Sammamish, Washington, or across the country in Buffalo, New York. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. For making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. A special thanks to all the everydayers. It's Matchup Wednesday. We'll be diving into all the key positional battles to watch when the Seahawks hit the road to face the Jacksonville Jaguars. In Duval, we'll get to that in a jam-packed episode coming your way, courtesy of our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now for your lead story here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. It's still fairly early in the season, just the second game into October, Week 6 coming up, but this has a chance to be a decisive week in the NFC West. Rob, when you look at where the standings sit right now, this is still a very tight division at this stage. The 49ers at 4-1 with their unexpected win against the Rams on Thursday Night Football, so they have secured sole possession of the division. Seattle and LA both at 3-2 right behind them. And the Arizona Cardinals, Arizona is in the danger zone right now, and not just because of the negative headlines that are coming out of there after that loss to the Titans. They've got to play Indianapolis, who at this point you have to believe that Indianapolis is real. That is a really good football team. That game's going to be a lot tougher for Seattle at the end of this year than I think people anticipated going into the season. The Rams are playing the Ravens, which was supposed to be one of their tougher games. The Ravens are extremely banged up. They haven't been able to stop anybody. Who knows if Lamar Jackson is going to be available for that game. But the Seahawks have their matchup at Jacksonville, and the 49ers are going to face those same Buccaneers that the Seahawks just lost to in Tampa, have to go cross country, and Brock Purdy is still banged up, not practicing. So, look, as I said, I think this is a week the Seahawks absolutely can gain some ground, because I think San Francisco, that's going to be really hard going to Florida to play Tampa and try to win that game. Indianapolis has a chance to really stomp the bug early on Arizona. If the Cardinals fall to 2-4, it's going to be a really difficult spot. The Rams, because of the Ravens situation, maybe the Rams are going to be heavy favorites, but who knows? The Ravens maybe show some fight this week, and that game is in Baltimore as well. This does feel like a week where things could line up, where Seattle can potentially gain some separation from a few teams and catch up with San Francisco, but they have to do their job first and foremost, winning in Jacksonville, which is going to be easier said than done.
Yeah, no question about it, Corbin. And as you said, the Rams could be a heavy favorite. They are, in fact, a heavy favorite at this point. 7.5-point road favorites at Baltimore. It seems crazy to say the Baltimore Ravens at 1-4, given all of the talent, all of the Super Bowl hype before the beginning of the season. But of course, as you mentioned, Lamar Jackson, we don't know if he is going to be playing for the Baltimore Ravens. Their defense is basically just a dream of what they once were, a nightmare, I guess I should say, of what they once were with all of the injuries that they have had. But it's still, you just have a lot of faith that John Harbaugh is going to be able at some point to kind of, circle the wagon, so to speak. And I wonder if this might be the game. 7.5-point favorites, again, for a road team does feel like an awful lot. Wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore is able to pull that off. And then the other three teams in the NFC West, including the Seahawks, are all actually underdogs. And so I think that this is going to be one of those kind of make it or break it type of weeks in the NFL. where you are going to see everybody is facing, out of division, in many cases out of conference opponents. And so it's going to be some fascinating outcomes, I think. I think we are going to see some upsets. As I mentioned before, I wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore is able to give San Francisco a little bit of a run for their money. As you talked about, the Indianapolis Colts are going to be playing, the Arizona Cardinals in Indianapolis. Like, the Colts are a 7.5-point favorite. The Jags are a 1.5-point favorite currently over the Seahawks, and then the Bucs are a 2.5-point favorite over the 49ers. Again, that game being in Tampa Bay as well. So yes, I 100% agree with you. I do think that this is going to be a fascinating opportunity for the Seahawks, because if they are able to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are as hot as any team in all of the NFL, coming on the heels of that Monday Night Football victory over the Kansas City Chiefs, as well as a victory over those 49ers in Santa Clara, if Seattle is able to do exactly that, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the rest of the division goes 0-3, puts Seattle in position to be in first place.
Looking at the league as a whole, we're doing something really fun that I think we're going to periodically revisit this year on the Locked On Podcast Network, breaking all the teams into tiers. And now that we've got 5 games in the books, got buys that are going to start happening this week, all of our hosts were asked to put each of our teams into one of 7 categories. Locked and loaded, which is your teams that you are ready to compete for championships. Any given Sunday, the teams that are right on the cusp, but any given Sunday, they can also lose to a team that they're supposed to beat. Hope changes week to week. Those are truly the teams that are a flip of a coin. You don't know what you're going to get. The I'm not mad, just disappointed group. You don't want to be in that group, but there's a few teams there. Injury report or CVS receipt. And then 2027 will be our year. And is it April yet? Which we've got 4 teams that are already hoping for the NFL draft. And I have the Seahawks, Rob, in the any given Sunday category, as do 2 other hosts in the division, the Rams and the 49ers, both in that category. The Cardinals, I think this is about right. I'm not mad, just disappointed. That's where Arizona is sitting right now. But I think that kind of gives you a sense, because I think that's probably where all 3 of these teams should be in the NFC West. If you're looking from a realistic standpoint, I think you've got 3 teams that are very much on the cusp of being contenders, and yet there are some reasons to wonder if they're going to be able to get to that level where they're locked and loaded. Seahawks, I think, are definitely in that group. I think 49ers and Rams are in that group as well. Arizona's got enough talent to play back into that, but it has not been as planned this year, and that's why they are in the I'm not mad, just disappointed category. But I think it does paint a picture what kind of division that the Seahawks are in, where you don't have an elite team that is head and shoulders above everybody else. You've got 3 very good teams, and maybe somebody emerges into the elite group from there, from those 3 teams. But that just shows you why this division is so tight right now, especially at the top with 3 teams that are 3-2 or better.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the Seahawks are currently the 6th seed in the NFC. So if the playoffs were to start right now, then Seattle would be in. I think that might surprise some Seahawks fans out there who feel like the sky is falling after this loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But again, I think that this is a testament to just how talented that the NFC West division is. I think anybody who watches the Arizona Cardinals, as many problems as they've had, they have talent. And so I think that they would be competing for first place, frankly, in some of the other divisions in football right now. And I just want to give kudos to the entire Locked On crew. Some of those, the different categories that they have created here, I just think are kind of funny. I definitely like the injury report or CVS receipt. I mean, it basically is, just kind of acknowledging the impact the injuries can have, but also just the frustration that their fans might be feeling, that they might need some type of pharmaceuticals just to get through the pain that is the fall and winter of the NFL season.
Yeah, and I think the other one that I'm cracking up about, no question about it, is it April yet? Because you do have teams that are already having fans like throwing together 2026 mock drafts. There will be some more teams that start to fall in that category as we progress here. I think you can maybe see the Raiders falling into that line. There's a few other teams, but absolutely hysterical, some of those categories. But look, Seahawks fans, you should take solace. Seattle is not in any of those bottom tiers. They're 3-2. They're very much in a good position. As you said, Rob, right now they'd be the 6th seed. They'd be a playoff team. Now you got to keep stacking wins, and they've got a really difficult opponent coming up in Jacksonville a team that's riding momentum, playing with a lot of confidence under a new coach and Liam Cohen. We're going to start diving into the matchup. Seahawks on offense against the Jaguars on defense. It'll be coming up next year on Matchup Wednesday. Locked On Seahawks. This season, the NFL season, is officially underway. We're in week 6 already. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props such as how many catches Jaxon Smith-Njigba will have this upcoming game against the Jaguars. Building a same-game parlay with multiple prop bets from the opening week or week 6, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're just watching your own team or keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more thrill to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s tuning in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks looking to get back in the win column, going on the road, which, most teams, they'd be saying, well, that's not necessarily the ideal situation. I think for the Seahawks, it's like, yes, we're leaving Lumen, and I can't explain why that's the case. They love playing on the road. We'll see if that continues in Duval against the Jaguars. Let's get to the key matchups to watch, and we're going to start with the Seahawks on the offensive side of the football. And Rob, I'm looking at this week a little bit different than I did this time last week because, again, you're playing a different team, and the Jags have a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. That's why they're 4-1. They are playing to that talent level. With that being said, I look at the linebackers, and we know just how dynamic Devin Lloyd's been. 4 interceptions already, had the long pick 6 against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes the other night. But if you look back even in his film at Utah, I feel like he is one of those players in his first 3 years in the league. One of the reasons the Jags tried to bench him a few times is because of his inability to consistently defend the run. And there's been some difficulties with his kind of lean build dealing with physicality in the run game. This feels like a opposite approach for the Seahawks, where last week it was got a pass to open up the run. I feel like against this Jags team, get Ken Walker III and Zach Charbonnet going, get some of that downhill football. I think you can play into Jacksonville's weaknesses a little bit by doing that and create some shot play opportunities, force them to bring an extra defender or 2 up in the box, and then let Sam Darnold take advantage in play action. I'm looking at that running back versus linebacker battle and feel like this could be one, if Seattle can swing it their way, it really improves their chances of winning this football game.
Yeah, no question about it. I think that's one of the things that, the Seahawks want to run the football. They've said as much. They've proven as much. And just their willingness to just keep on pounding the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock. They haven't had quite as many breakaway runs, I think, as at least than I expected. And certainly, as has been well documented, their struggles with consistency. They've had as many tackles at the line or behind the line of scrimmage as just about any team in the NFL. But at the same time, I do think that this is a Jacksonville Jaguars defense that, while they are stout in the middle, they have some pass rush specialists on the outside, as well as at the linebacker position. And so I do think that this is a game that sets up well for Seattle to try to just pound the rock, try to get that Duval crowd a little bit out of their element, because they're going to be jacked up for this game. I mean, the Jaguars are playing really good football right now. And so to try to kind of silence that crowd, keep an offense that hasn't been that explosive for Jacksonville, but has been productive enough, obviously, to power their way to a 4-1 start. And I also think that it's important to mention that Sam Darnold, as a scrambler, can also be some of that running game. If the Seahawks are bound and determined, as Mike McDonald sounded during his Wednesday press conference, to keep Jalen Monroe as part of the game plan, then I think that running the football with your quarterbacks also can be a possibility. I just would focus in on trying to make sure that you're protecting the football first and foremost. That's where the Jaguars really have been so impressive this season. It's not just Devin Lloyd and his 4 interceptions, which lead the NFL. I mean, Corbin, the Jaguars have 14 turnovers as a whole so far this season. 14 turnovers in 5 games. I mean, my God, they've been fantastic in that way. If the Seahawks can control the football and not turn it over, obviously they've struggled in that in the loss to the 49ers, the loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I really do think that this is a game that's very much winnable.
Yeah, and I think the matchup that probably concerns me the most coming into this game, it would be off the edge. And you mentioned the pass rush specialist aspect for the Jags, but there's one player in particular, Josh Hines Allen. He is a dynamic athlete, a guy that has had a 17-sack season a couple years ago. Now, he has a half a sack through 5 games, but it's misleading when you're looking at what he has done productivity-wise. He has 8 quarterback hits this year, so almost double digits in that category. And he is a player that always concerns me going against Jacksonville just because of his quick twitch, his explosiveness, his ability to bend around the corner, and his finishing ability. That does not reflect in the sacks this year, but he has been a consistent double-digit caliber sack player since coming into the NFL out of Kentucky. So Charles Cross, Abe Lucas, they got to be ready. He'll play on both sides of the line. Those guys are going to be challenged by his speed. And Jacksonville's got a few other guys that can get after the QB, but Hines Allen is one of those players that I think can absolutely destroy a passing game by himself. If he gets on a hot streak, we've seen him do it before. And again, he is overdue. You hate saying that going into a game like this, but he is overdue for a game where he gets to the quarterback a few times. The tackles, it's going to be on them. The guy's chipping him to try to make it. That doesn't happen this week.
Yeah, as you suggest, or as you mentioned, Hines Allen only has a half a sack so far this season. The statistics are not there to suggest that he is a terrific pass rusher. At the same time, as I often say, the proof is in the pudding. If you watch the tape, you can see his burst, his bend, his length off the edge. That is going to be a significant challenge. And I think that he may have his battery mate back in Trayvon Walker, the former number 1 overall selection, of course. And he is a guy that has 2 sacks on the season. Again, doesn't sound that impressive, but you have to remember that he missed the last week after having left wrist surgery, but he is possibly going to be back in this football game against the Seahawks. So yes, Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas are going to very much have their hands full. And so it's going to be interesting to see if Seattle is able to keep those edge rushers on the outside. Sam Darnold or again, Jalen Monroe might be able to kind of step up into the pocket. And that's where I worry a little bit, is about the interior of the offensive line. We've seen Seattle struggle with their guard and center play at times this season. Right now, the Jaguars are actually led by Eric Armstead, former San Francisco 49er, who has 2.5 sacks. The Jaguars only have, I believe it's 7 sacks in the first 5 games of the season. That has not been their game. Again, it's been the turnovers that they've been able to create. But their pass rushers have forced quarterbacks to put the ball in harm's way, as we saw before, again, with Devin Lloyd and that interception return for a touchdown against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and it would be easy for us to point out the interior. I just think that, Hines Allen in this game is probably the one that scares me the most. Armstead's still a very good player, so that's not disrespecting him at all. Let's talk about the get your popcorn ready matchup, because at least for me, we don't know how much we are going to see Travis Hunter on the outside playing corner. Jacksonville's been starting to use him more both on offense and defense, but they're trying to balance this because this is not Colorado anymore. And in the NFL, you can't have a guy play every single snap on both sides. So you're not going to see him playing every snap. But I am excited to see him and Jaxon Smith-Njigba go against each other. The best of the best on both sides. Tyson Campbell is another player that is a solid corner, but he's had his issues giving up some downfield plays this year, and he isn't known for his ball hawking ability. And so I'm wondering if that could be somebody that Sam Darnold really tries to pick on, both with Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Torrey Horton. This could be a game where Horton's speed ends up being a difference, especially with Hunter not playing all or even, half the snaps on defense. This is a cornerback group. It feels like that long speed could create some issues. We saw Xavier Worthy make some big plays for Kansas City on Monday night. I think Torrey Horton can have a similar impact here against this secondary, but they are opportunistic. The safeties get their hands on the football a lot. So Sam Darnold's got to make sure he's smart with the football. And by the way, over the middle, this is not related to this matchup, but This is where Devin Lloyd concerns you the most with what we just saw and the fact he's got 4 picks. Seattle loves to attack the middle of the field. You better know where number 0 is at every point, because if you don't, he's going to do what he did to Patrick Mahomes on Monday night.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you, mentioned Xavier Worthy, the Kansas City Chiefs speedster, and how he kind of challenged Travis Hunter straight down the field. There are very few receivers who have Torrey Horton straight line speed. And so I do think that might be something that the Seahawks took away from that Monday night game as something that they might be able to do against Travis Hunter when he is on the football field. They have often used him on the inside at the nickel position, where they have a talented nickel cornerback anyways, and Jordan Lewis, brought over from the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McDonald might remember him during their time at Michigan. So again, I think that is a talented cornerback group for the Jaguars. You mentioned Tyson Campbell. Monteric Brown is a quality player as well. Jordan Lewis, again, even if Travis Hunter is not on the field, on the defensive side of the field for the Jaguars, again, this is a talented cornerback group. Sam Darnold's throwing the ball so damn well right now that I don't have a huge concerns in that way. But if Travis Hunter is on the field, he doesn't have an interception yet. He doesn't have a touchdown yet on offense. I hate to say, as you mentioned before, we're talking about Josh Hines-Allen, that you're waiting for that kind of breakout. I'm waiting a little bit for that breakout for Travis Hunter as well. I just don't know that it has to be Travis Hunter. I think that the Jaguars have enough talented defensive backs there that the Seahawks passing game has got to continue the momentum that they had, and we could go against Tampa Bay and bring it down to the state of Florida as well.
When we come back, we're going to continue Matchup Wednesday. Seahawks on defense going up against Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars offense. That'll be up next here on Locked On Seahawks.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Welcome back to Matchup Wednesday here on Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, and thank you as always for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Seahawks getting ready to head down to Florida to battle the Jacksonville Jaguars, coming off a huge win on Monday Night Football against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 4-1. They are riding high after that big win. So this is going to be a difficult matchup. Let's talk Seahawks defense against the Jaguars on offense. And, we talk about trench play every one of these Matchup Wednesday episodes, but I feel like when you're looking at Jacksonville's offense, that in this game, so much of it rides on that defensive line. And I'm going to start off. Look, I said it on our earlier episode this week, and I'm going to keep saying it. I am going to keep calling out that edge rushing group because I need to see them play to their talent. We have not seen it at this point. Uchenna Nwosu had a great game against the Cardinals, but no sacks for Boye Mafe. We're probably not going to see Derek Hall this week. I don't know if we're going to see DeMarcus Lawrence. So it might be Uchenna Nwosu, Boye Mafe, and then Jared Ivey and Connor O'Toole. If those guys are going to get their opportunities, hey, seize your chance here. This is your opportunity to get after Trevor Lawrence, a QB who can have a tendency to hold on to the football a little bit too long and take some hits. And that's how he got banged up last year. But they have to actually get home, and you have to be able to set the edge as well. ETN is a really good east-west runner. You got to make sure that you limit those opportunities for him. But that edge group, to me, they failed against Tampa Bay. you can't fail again against Jacksonville. This group needs to impact the game in a positive way for the Seahawks, going against a group of tackles, Walker Little and Anton Harrison, that there's been some dinged up injuries there for that group. They've been really solid this year, but can you exploit them and give them a difficult afternoon? This edge group needs to step up and play to their capabilities.
No question about it. I mean, the name is Boye Mafe. Right now, it's been like Ole Mafe because it just there hasn't been any kind of production so far. And so, again, I don't want to make a joke about what I think is the most serious thing holding the Seahawks back. You said as much in yesterday's show, Corbin, that the Seahawks are only going to go as far as this pass rush is going to allow them to go. And right now, it is very much limiting them. It was absolutely abysmal in the loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past week. Say what you will about anything else, about the turnovers or anything else. It was the lack of a pass rush that really was the deciding factor, at least in my opinion, in that football game. And that was the advantage of playing at home. You thought that was going to be able to provide Mafe or Uchenna Nwosu or anybody else, a little bit more of that initial first advantage. And they didn't have that. And so to go on the road and to be expecting them to suddenly step up their play, it is a big task. But at the same time, as they're saying across the street, at T-Mobile Park, seize the moment. If this is the moment here for a Jared Ivey or for a Connor O'Toole or for anybody else, then again, you're going to have to be able to take advantage of these opportunities because Walker Little is a quality left tackle. And same thing with Anton Harrison at the right tackle position. But as you mentioned, they have struggled a little bit with durability. And I think that this is a game in which Seattle's edge rushers should be able to at least get some initial pressure, force the quarterback to flush up the middle. I don't have a great deal of confidence. As good as Trevor Lawrence is in terms of his athletic ability, he didn't look real athletic on that rushing touchdown he had to break the Kansas City Chiefs' hearts. Chris Jones is a terrific player for Kansas City. I don't know that he is the same player that Leonard Williams has proven to be the last couple of seasons. And so this, to me, if it's not Seattle's edge rushers, then it's going to be critical that Seattle's interior pass rush be able to wreak havoc on the quarterback.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because that, to me, look, we can say all we want about the edge guys, and I think they have to play well to complement those players in the interior. But Jacksonville's dealing with some injuries in the middle. Robert Hainsey, their starting center, had to exit the game on Monday night. Who knows if he's going to be available? And Jonah Monheim played outstanding checking in, the rookie out of USC. But he's still a rookie, and now you've got some game film on him that you can look at. And anytime you're talking about a backup, you got to exploit that. And we talked about this last week. Tampa Bay was banged up in the interior, but the defensive tackle group for the Seahawks, first time this year, they went AWOL. Like the only notable play that I can remember was the roughing or the penalty that Leonard Williams had in the end zone with his frustrations because he was getting pushed around. Like these guys got to play to their capabilities this week and do what they did the first 4 games, because I think this is the weak point in Jacksonville's offensive line still is the middle. It's the guards. It's the potential for a backup center. Even if Hainsey plays, he's not the most physical, powerful guy. This should be a matchup that your interior defensive lineman can get after Trevor Lawrence. And historically, you take this back to Clemson, Rob, you scouted him. Trevor Lawrence is one of those quarterbacks that can absolutely, even at this stage of his career in the NFL, can absolutely whittle under interior pressure. If that pocket collapses down on him and you don't give him an option to run because he's an athletic guy, he can take off. He showed that the other night. Even if the one touchdown, he did trip himself up twice, maybe that speaks more volumes to the type of athlete we're talking about here with Trevor Lawrence. But they got to get that interior pressure, collapse that pocket down. And Trevor Lawrence will still, he's done it a few times this year, he will still uncork throws that you wouldn't expect from a player of his intelligence, his accuracy. He will take chances that he shouldn't, but they've got to get that pressure in the middle. You still got to do it on the field, as we saw the first 4 games. Those guys need to come out angry after having their worst game collectively by a very wide margin last week against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, angry is the word there that you just mentioned that I really want to kind of latch on to for a second. That was, in my opinion, kind of the calling card of this defense is they were highly physical. If teams were able to run the ball on them or, create a bit of a pass protection kind of pocket for the quarterback, it wasn't because of a lack of nastiness, physicality, and anger. But again, that was just so absent in the loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so I'm really curious to see if Seattle was able to get back that anger and that physicality, because I do feel like this is a Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line in which if you bring the fight to them, then you could wind up winning this football game. And we talked about Robert Hainsey, a quality center in the middle. But if they do go to Jonah Monheim is a good player. I mean, I think that the Jaguars stole him in the 7th round. At the same time, he played his first 3 seasons at USC at the left tackle position, and then they moved him inside to center. He is a tall, upright kind of a player. He reminds me a little bit, frankly, of Jalen Sundell. And I think that a guy like a Byron Murphy, certainly a guy like a Leonard Williams, even a traditional run stuffer like a Brendan Peely, who has been active each of the last 3 games, being brought up from the practice squad. Again, I do think that Seattle should be able to control the middle of the line of scrimmage, and that should give them a significant advantage in a football game in which I do think that both teams are going to try to run the ball down each other's throats.
And let's just put it this way. If that front line does not get more pressure on Trevor Lawrence, it's not going to matter if Devin Witherspoon or Julian Love are back in the lineup or if Reek Woolen's back in the lineup. You've got to have that pass rush to speed up the clock for the QB. And Jacksonville has got weapons on the outside. Brian Thomas, statistically not quite as good so far as he was last year, but he had some big plays Monday night against Kansas City. Tall, athletic receiver that dominates downfield, wins those jump balls with ease. His size, like, you're really hoping you have Reek Woolen in this game because theoretically, at least, Reek Woolen is the one corner that has the size that can really match up with him in the athleticism. So you're hoping he was limited in practice today. You're hoping that he passes through concussion protocol and you have him available this weekend and he can have his best game of the season in a matchup against a very similar athlete body type in Brian Thomas. But he is certainly a weapon. Parker Washington has emerged as a really good complementary receiver that can play both in the slot and the outside. Seattle's got to worry about him. And, of course, Travis Hunter. That he has played more on offense than defense to this point. No touchdowns, but he made a couple spectacular catches on Monday night against Kansas City. And we know what kind of a player he is, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Just an absolute freak, jumping up and getting the ball, making plays after the catch. So you really are hoping you have all hands on deck to go against that group and that your pass rush helps those guys, because if there isn't a rush, you can only cover for so long. With the issues they had last week, this is another receiving core. I don't think it's as talented as what Tampa Bay has, but it's not far off with upside, and certainly they've got some athletes with some juice that can do damage downfield. Those corners are going to be hoping to play sticky coverage. They're going to need some help married up with that pass rush. If that happens, then I think that they can handle this. If not, look, you might see a little bit of a rerun of what we saw this past weekend, regardless of who's active or not in the secondary for Seattle.
Yeah, there's just certain matchups all year long, Corbin, that just as a scout excite me. I just want to see how they match up and what happens. Last week, of course, it was the battle of the 2 quarterbacks and the fact that they have been, cast off by so many different NFL teams are playing at an arguably MVP level in Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. This time, to me, it is Seattle's corners against Jacksonville's wide receivers. I thought you articulated it very well with what Brian Thomas Jr. is. I mean, he's just a dynamic athlete. Guys that are as tall as he is shouldn't be able to change direction and accelerate the way that he does. One of the very few corners that can do that is, of course, a healthy Tariq Woolen. Travis Hunter is as dynamic of a talent as I have seen. I love his versatility. I really want to see a guy like a Devin Witherspoon matched up with him one-on-one. They are 2 of the most instinctive players I've ever seen in 25 years of evaluating prospects for the NFL. And so I want to see those 2 players. And then again, the physical nature of it. I want to see Josh Jobe, who I think that has had some miscues over these last couple of games. I want to see a bounce back game from him. As you acknowledged before, Trevor Lawrence will throw the ball up. I would not be surprised at all if one of Seattle's big-time playmaking cornerbacks is able to turn around and make the big play that breaks Jacksonville's heart in this football game.
As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky, Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Rang. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss a single episode. If you're somebody that's looking for film breakdowns, I posted on EmeraldCitySpectrum.com this morning an in-depth look at the All-22, what went wrong for Seattle's pass defense, looking at 10 explosive plays that Tampa Bay had. You can check that out with a subscription at EmeraldCitySpectrum.com. We'll be back tomorrow with Crossover Thursday. I'll be teaming up with my good friend Tony Wiggins from Locked On Jaguars, and we're going to dig even deeper into this upcoming matchup in Jacksonville. That'll be dropping early, 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. Pacific time. Make sure that you're ready to listen to that. And thanks for tuning into this episode. Go Hawks.